And welcome to Light Years. Samus Fandiari here. Kyle Madsen sitting across from me. I like your shirt, buddy.
Thanks, man. I hope John Fisher sells VAs. Just kind of wake up and say that every day.
Yeah, you know.
Last day of the legislative session in Nevada on Monday when we're recording this. So, fingers crossed that.
The interesting thing for me, this is actually uninteresting. This is just a purely me thing. It's like I'm following all this stuff and I'm like, I know nothing about Nevada politics. And then, my brain then goes to why on earth would I know anything about Nevada politics? But
I would be weirded out if you did know about Nevada politics.
I'm just coming in here with takes about the zoning laws in Vegas. Like, bro, this congressman just upzoning everyone north of whatever boulevard, Yeah.
I will say, trying to prop up Las Vegas by talking about how much Oakland sucks. Like, okay. That doesn't really track. You've been to Vegas?
Speaking of Las Vegas, let's talk about the teenager we're going to call the future at summer. Oh, I'm just kidding.
Jonathan Kuminga.
Exactly. Yeah, we might as well talk about that. So Steve Kerr went on Draymond Green's pod. Hey, do you not feel like the NBA Finals take way too many days between games?
I didn't feel that whenever the Warriors were in it, because I was just, the stress level is so high between games and you're thinking about matchups and you're breaking everything down and what if this and that. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh God, there's a game. Oh my God. Whereas now, dude, come on. One after the other. Let's go. Play back-to-backs.
Back-to-backs. Jokic has the legs. It's fine. The Miami guys, they grind. Jimmy Butler's posting on Instagram how hard he grinds at 4 a.m. or whatever. So, yeah, it's so weird when your team's not in it. You're like, dude, this is taking forever. It's like Super Bowl week when your team's not in it, where you're like, I don't need to see the guy from the Tonight Show doing the thing a million times.
It's brutal.
It is, yeah. So thankfully, Draymond Green, who knows we have a thirsting appetite for content, is like, I got you guys. He had Steve Kerr on his God. He had Steve Kerr on his podcast this week today, and I urge everyone listening to this to listen to it. Quite frankly, if you are a Light Years listener, you probably did listen to it. Let's not lie. Don't lie. But there was one thing here which I thought was interesting, so we'll just play it.
A huge three in the fourth quarter tonight, and it's like none of those guys on Miami are sitting there saying, well, I didn't play, or man, they put in so and so. Like, they're just all about winning. And this from our groups that we've had, when you have that championship mentality, every guy's bought in, every guy's just trying to win. Nobody cares about any of that stuff. You don't go into the locker room, saying, well, I should have played more. You just want to win. And that's the beauty of finding that magic when you have a championship team, is that everybody's bought in, and it makes the decisions for the coach really simple. You just go with your gut and go with whoever's playing well.
Oh, Steve. I mean, is he saying, give me Juan Toscano-Anderson, send Jonathan Kuminga to the G League? Did that feel like a little look behind the curtain?
I want to ask you this. Yeah, because let's rewind to the start of the playoffs.
Okay.
Steve Kerr has the benefit of hindsight. We don't. So he knows what's coming. Adam Silver says, hey, you can trade Jonathan Kuminga for Juan Toscano-Anderson straight across right now. Does he do it?
Yes, of course.
I think so too.
And he tells Joe, not my problem. You can sell the Chase Center out in 4 years when I'm gone.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. When he was, so obviously they recorded that after game 2. Miami had the big win. Mm-hmm. That game, by the way, reminded me of the 2015 Warriors, where they're overwhelmingly talented, but they lost to like teams who could just like get physical and kind of disrupt their rhythm. Like Miami felt so much like the 2015 Cavs or the Memphis Grizzlies, where it's just like, oh, they got under your skin a little bit. They got you out of your game. You shouldn't be bothered by them, but it happens.
Yeah, where Miami maybe wins game 3, and all of a sudden we're talking about, oh, Miami ate it off, and then they get steamrolled through the last 4. That would be the 2015 Warriors thing to do. Go down 2-1 and then win it 4-2 and win by an average of 20 points the rest of the way.
Exactly.
So Kerr saying this is really interesting to me. Not necessarily said that by itself, because that's not that earth-shattering of thing. But I think when you pair that with what he said after the second round loss to the Lakers, where he said this was not a championship team. That's why. Like, he said out loud on the Draymond podcast what he meant by that quote. And that's very telling to me. And it's the biggest reason I think this offseason, I don't think it's insane that they move on from Jordan Poole or Jonathan Kuminga. Like, that Jonathan Kuminga report came out minutes after they lost, that he was upset with his lack of role.
Yeah.
So that's really clearly what they're prioritizing and what they believe they need to get to a title. And I just think anybody who's not bought in, given where they are in this window.
Do you think the front office agrees with them? Because the thing I take away from all these statements and everything is Steve he has his narrative.
Mm-hmm. He
knows how to communicate what he believes. We know he believes it. And you know what? He has conviction behind it because it's worked many times.
Mm-hmm.
So you can say like, oh, he's stubborn. He should play the young guys more. He should do X, Y, and Z. The way he likes to do things has a level of success that, I too would not want to deviate from the things I knew. Coaches roll like that. Shout out Sam Darnold, the starting quarterback for the Niners. Right?
Stop, please stop.
He wants that, and then obviously Draymond. Oh, you think Draymond's like, yep, it's time for me to take a veteran minimum and sit on the bench so Kuminga can shine. Like, Draymond obviously wants the narrative to be that, the young guys need to fall in line or they need to move on because what we do works.
Right.
And we haven't heard anything from anyone else around the team. And mostly because no one else has a podcast that's in front of the camera 24/7. But like, to the point, Bob Myers left a week ago, we had the press conference last Monday. They haven't named a replacement. Everyone thinks it's going to be Mike Dunleavy and it's going to be business as usual. And like, you can chalk me up in that category too. I can't see them going externally and hiring someone. It's probably just going to be the same brain trust. And then like, we'll see who internally's voice is louder now that Bob's not there. We haven't heard how they feel. And that's the real interesting part to it. Cause Steve's powerful, but he doesn't sign the checks.
No doubt. But at the same time, what's your other option? If you sit down with the brain trust, so it's Lacob and Kerr and Mike Dunleavy Jr. and Kirk Lacob and whoever else, they're sitting down at a big conference table at Chase Center. That's where I'm imagining this happening. And they say, okay, what went wrong this year? And Steve Kerr says what he said on Draymond's podcast. Said this was not a championship team because we did not have players all buying into their role, no matter how large or small. I think that carries a lot of weight. I don't think you're going to get Joe Lacob saying, well, Jonathan Kuminga just needs to play more then. If that's the case, then I don't think Steve would be around.
Yeah, that sounds like a recipe for like a huge blow up if that's where we're headed with this, right? So
yeah, and I can't imagine it going that direction. So
no, because we haven't factored in the Steph Curry factor. Like, you can have all these conversations. Who's going to tell Steph that we're trading all the your vets to play the young guys, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so I tend to, I mean, they're clearly trying to thread a needle. Like, and can we talk about it? Like, is it wrong to want what Joe Lacob wants?
No, it's the goal every team strives for, right?
Yeah. Never suck. Just have a continual, like,
Right.
as one star gets old, a new star emerges, and you dominate for eternity and everything like that. It's just,
it turns out that's really hard to do. That's why it
particularly in a
doesn't just
sport where you
happen
don't
all
have
the time.
minor leagues where you control guys for
Yeah.
decades at a time, like in baseball.
Yeah, and it's
So-
really hard to find impactful players if you're winning that consistently. Then, like, if David Robinson doesn't get hurt, the Spurs don't get Tim Duncan, and the Spurs dynasty doesn't become what it was.
Sure.
So the Warriors had their
and if
chance.
Josh Primo doesn't, commit a bunch of HR violations, then they don't get Wembanyama. So
yeah, great point.
Yeah, that was not a good point. Anyway,
no, but that's like they're trying to thread this needle, like you said, but it's basically impossible to do, and it's become clear that this iteration of the Warriors, this style, this Steve Kerr, Steph Dre, Claymon, Steph Dre, and Claymon. It's 2023, and I'm still doing that. It doesn't work for Kuminga. Like, you're 2 years in and you can't get in the playoff rotation even a little bit. Like, all right, move on.
Our guy Hayden dropped a question in the chat, and I just want to say this: feel free to throw comments in there. We'll pull them up if they make sense. Hayden goes, JK played 20 minutes per game in the regular season.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't play in the playoffs because he's a poor man's Jared Vanderbilt at the moment. He should put in work in the lab this summer if he wants more minutes. A little harsh, but
I kind of agree, though.
But he's not wrong on the overarching point, which is Kuminga played 20 minutes a game, and he played closer to 25 after the All-Star break. I thought he played really well, honestly.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree.
I'm high on his potential. But at the end of the day, I don't care that he shot 41% on 1 3 a game,
Right.
People aren't guarding him. He's not a shooter yet, right?
Right.
And he was the playoffs expose what you can't do more than show what you can do. And like, he's still a work in progress. So he fell out of the rotation. Honestly, he fell out of the rotation for 5 games, maybe 7 games. Like, if you think about it, it's not the largest sample.
No doubt. But this is also 2 years in a row that he couldn't play in the playoffs for a team where, like, the playoffs are the thing. Sure. If you cannot participate in those 16 games at the end of the season, I don't care what you did the previous 82.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my bigger issue. And maybe I like Jonathan Kuminga. I think he's a good player. And I think if the Warriors trade him, he would go somewhere and be a really good player somewhere. But if keeping him around is going to make it harder for the current core to win a title, I don't necessarily give a shit, to be frank, quite frankly.
What do you say to someone such as me who would say, yeah, well, maybe if your veterans didn't punch one of your younger guys in the face and your other veteran didn't come into camp 10 pounds overweight and needed 2 months to get himself into shape, like, you're a young player on this team. Let's not act like the Warriors veteran core threw out a 96 Bulls effort to start the season,
No, they were also bad down the stretch in the playoffs.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where I'm like, there's a little do as I say, not as I do among those guys too. And I think that's where the disconnect comes a little bit. So
look, I understand. So the 2 timelines thing has been weird because there's people who say that was a media concocted thing, but it clearly wasn't. It was just an
Yeah.
illustration of what the Warriors were trying
They
to
were
do.
they were thrilled to take all the credit for it when they were winning.
Yeah. And so like it's a good idea. Like there's nothing wrong with trying to do what they did.
It's the dream. It's the dream scenario.
Right. And you whiff on the number 2 overall pick, and that kind of derails that whole thing. And then your number 7 overall pick can't get on the court in the playoffs. Again, that derails the whole thing. But at this point, where I am, I'm not blaming younger players, but I do think that it's really clear, and we saw it this season, that Jordan Poole, Jonathan Kuminga, specifically those two, I don't want to include Moses Moody there, but it's pretty clear that those two very talented players don't fit with what the Warriors are doing. And you now have 2 timelines that are separate. They're disconnected. That was the word of the year, right? The disconnect. And that's why they were so bad on the road. And that's why they were so bad defensively. And can they ratchet it up for the playoffs? And they couldn't. So now to me, the 2 timelines thing is out the window. You have a choice now. And it's you stick with your young guys and Steph, I guess, or you keep this core together, tear up everything else, and say, okay, pushing all the chips in for the next 2 or 3 seasons.
Yeah, and part of me is looking at it, and I really do think Jordan Poole is probably the biggest one to figure out here.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it's a lot easier to have young guys come through if they don't outnumber the old dudes. And I think this year that was the case. There's Jordan Poole, there's Kuminga, Patrick Baldwin was probably a nightmare behind the scene. But like, it's just like there just weren't enough veterans. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it's one of those things where I'm just sitting there, I'm going, I can see Jonathan Kuminga being a very effective player for this team if he's the only young guy in the mix. But if your team is all young guys off the bench and Andre Iguodala in street clothes, come on, man. That's not a con. It's like, you obviously host the Candlestick Chronicles, and it's like asserting a rookie DB into a veteran core. You can probably get away with it. Throwing 3 rookies out there, it's probably going to be fucking horrendous, Yeah. And that's kind of how it goes.
Yeah. And the only reason I don't want to, I bring up Kuminga, not because I think he's bad, but because if I'm trying to improve the Warriors, they're going to have to move him. That's why his name. I think he's very good, and I agree with you. You
think he's their best trade chip, basically?
Yeah. Because I don't know where Jordan Poole stands, kind of league wide right now, but yeah, I could absolutely see a scenario where the Warriors make some moves and Kuminga sticks around and he grows into a bigger role and everything's hunky dory. Honestly, the bigger deal, just to zoom into this year, JaMychal Green not being able to replicate Otto Porter was kind of a bummer.
Well, I think they want. I mean, if we're gonna get into that conversation, I think the hope was Kuminga would be able to replace that role. Not the same player, but like
same.
Otto played 20 minutes per game, high level, versatile player. He didn't draft a 6'7", 6'8" wing with Kuminga's tools not to do that.
No doubt.
It didn't happen. It did for parts of the regular season, but at the end of the season, he couldn't get on the floor. And yeah, to your point, JaMychal's the same thing. I mean, they need someone who can score the ball, who plays in the front court, period. Whether it's shooting or whether it's like pressure on the rim. Yeah. Because these Draymond Looney lineups, like we know where they go. It's just, it is what it is. I wanted to ask you this. Do you think it's more about Kuminga or Jordan Poole when they're talking like that?
Oh, I think JaMychal Green's involved there. He said as much.
Okay.
Like he openly said that he was unhappy with his role. And I think Kuminga too, where there was that report right after the season ended that he was unhappy with his role. And that's, okay, I kind of get it. You go from playing 25 minutes a game to none. That's got to suck. So I get it. And then with Poole, that had to be like an all year thing, right?
Yeah,
Where
I mean,
he gets paid and then it's like, come off the bench. Okay, now you're going to start. Okay, now wait, come off the bench. Well, you're not playing great. You're going to play less off the bench. Okay, but now you're going to start again. That's just a really hard spot to be for any young player. And then
I
you go
feel
struggle in the playoffs.
Yeah, I feel like my overarching take, and I've probably said this before, it's um I don't know which of them needs to necessarily go. Poole's the most obvious one because the new CBA and the money committed to him, and it's just a
Mhm.
cap issue.
Mhm.
But putting that all aside, and we can talk about that another time, um, they just need one of those guys to be replaced by a more steady veteran, honestly. Like at the highest level, I need I need Kyle Anderson. I need Mike Conley.
I
I don't
hate Kyle
need
Anderson so much.
you know what I'm saying though? Like those
But
dudes
I know what you're saying. I
those
get it.
dudes are vets. They don't have the upside of Poole or Kuminga in any capacity. Like they'll
No, that well, and what you're saying is why this conversation is so tough.
yeah,
Nobody is saying that Jonathan Kuminga is bad at basketball. Nobody's
sure.
saying that Jordan Poole is bad at basketball. There's like a personality off-court intangible element to this that, going back to the start of this conversation with what Steve Kerr said, that has nothing to do with basketball. That's just buy-in. That's just mental and emotional buy-in to what the team is doing and committing to winning no matter what your role is. And so if Jonathan Kuminga and Jordan Poole have an epiphany this summer and they call Draymond and say, or Steve Kerr, whoever, and say, hey, we're in no matter what, playing 0 minutes or 40 minutes, we're in, we want to win, great. But what are the odds that happens? It's very low. And that's why this becomes a hard conversation, because it's not dragging those guys as players. It's just how do they fit with the ethos of this team that's already won 4 titles together.
No, I mean it's they gotta make a decision. That's where we come back to. Time to make a decision. They've kicked the can down the road. They got lucky 2022 with it not biting them. They felt it the following year. All things equal, I'll take those 2 outcomes. I'll take a title, you know. So that's okay.
Yeah, same.
It's time to make some stronger decisions and move forward. Let's get some voicemails.
Hell yeah, I love that idea.
All right.
What's up, dudes? Do you think that the youngins will feel more inspired by the Draymond Green podcast featuring Steve Kerr today, or do you think it'll make them feel even worse about themselves and incapable? Or do you think they just don't care?
That's a fascinating question.
Over under Jordan Poole threw the pot on this morning while driving around his sports car.
Yes that he put it. No, I don't think Jordan Poole himself listened to it.
No.
I'm guessing that's a definite no, but his friends listened and gave him the rundown.
Come on, you and I both know what happened. He saw a clip on his fucking Instagram or Twitter feed, you know?
Yeah, that too. That definitely happened.
NBA Central threw up a quote out of context, and he's like, Draymond said, "What about me?" Yeah, that's exactly what happened right there.
Yeah, I think so too. And as far as that question, I think what my guess is what Steve Kerr said on Draymond's podcast was not something that whoever it was about, I'm guessing, but whoever it was about hasn't already heard from him. I don't think Steve Kerr at the end of the year was like, you guys are so awesome.
No, he's a pretty transparent dude.
Yeah. So whoever that was about, they know. And they've been told.
Yeah.
And I think the front office this offseason is going to act accordingly. I think a lot of the Warriors' moves coming up will tell us a lot about who he was talking about.
And I think I tend to, he's asking, do you think it's going to motivate them? Do you think it's going to annoy them? Or do you think it won't matter? I kind of think it won't matter.
I don't think it matters.
I don't think there was anything revelatory there. I don't think Jordan Poole's coming away from us like, oh, I didn't know Steve wanted us to buy in. Like, you know what I mean?
Oh my God, I feel like an idiot.
That's what he meant the whole time. What?
Oh.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's not a it's gonna be something on their feed for 12 hours and then it's over, you know. But I don't think it changes how anyone feels. So.
Yeah. No, I'm totally with you. I don't think it matters that much.
I
And if it does, then that's kind of the crux of the problem.
I really hope this isn't brand new info for anyone. I like this.
I do real quick. I do love the idea of that being a motivating factor though.
Yeah.
Like Jonathan Kuminga was like, I'm taking a day off. And then he saw that quote on NBA Central or whatever and was like, no, I'm back in the lab.
And he puts on the Rocky music. He's just eating raw eggs, running the stairs. Yeah. All right, we got a new one. This is I like this one. I listened to this one before.
What's good, fellas? It's Izzo. Try to bear with me, man. I got a little bit to vent, but you know, I kind of feel like we forget that before Kerr, Draymond was a second rounder on the verge of Italy playing spot minutes at power forward, small forward. Boy Looney was an afterthought. Probably doesn't last in the league if Kerr doesn't beg and plead management to keep him. Not for Kerr's system philosophy. GP2 doesn't get that contract from the Blazers and probably any other NBA team for that matter. JaVale McGee's done in the league. Poole probably hooping in Greece. Yet there's this narrative that Kerr can and hasn't developed players, and for the players that have been developed or excelled under him, folks try to find ways to send credit elsewhere. So my question for y'all is it possible that we take Kerr for granted? And I mean, listen, he annoys me at times, you know, but what coach doesn't? And so maybe it's even time for him to. Maybe we're just tired of him. It's not that he's a bad coach, or I don't know. Anyway, the second thing is, y'all think that one of that Gabe Vincent or Caleb Martin would excel on the Warriors, and if so, you know, how about maybe Gabe Vincent as a Dante replacement if Dante opts out? Or your college player. You know, Kerr loves those cats. Anyways, appreciate y'all. Peace.
I guarantee you Steve Kerr has texted. Oh, no. Well, I guess no point texting Bob anymore.
Bob's working until June 30, bro.
he threw it in the basketball ops Slack channel so everyone could see. He's saying, You give me Caleb Martin and Gabe Vincent for Jordan Poole and Jonathan Kuminga, and the fifth banner goes up. I guarantee you he feels that way. And he might not be wrong.
The Heat would say no to that so fast.
I mean, first
Jordan
off,
Poole, not a Heat culture guy. Jonathan Kuminga, maybe. Jordan Poole, not.
Can you imagine Jordan Poole and Tyler Hero together?
Oh my God, the city of Miami would burn down.
Eric Spoelstra would. First off, Spo's over 50 and he has no grays.
Spo is over 50.
He would turn gray, so he'd look like Pop by the end of the season with those two. Like you know what I'm saying? Like that dude looks. He's not aging, even though he sounds like he's at the end of every game. It's like you know how coaches sound at the end of the game. They sound like they got back from the front lines.
Him snapping at Ramona last night was wild.
I thought that was. Can I talk about that real quick?
Yeah.
Untrained eye is hilarious. First off, I don't think he meant anything by it other than he didn't want to discuss the fact that they figured out a strategy to make the Nuggets less effective. So he pulled a Greg Popovich by just like, just basically trying to bully Ramona a little bit.
Just distracting from the question by talking about how awful the question was.
Yeah,
it was a perfectly valid question, and she even said it's an oversimplification.
Yeah, it's very clear what she meant, and she's like, "Oh, the untrained eye." Like, it's like, what are you talking about, dude?
Hey, the funniest shit was the Heat players got asked about it, and they were like, "Yeah, that's what we were trying to do." They're like, "We saw you had 41, and we were thrilled." Like, oh, okay.
Yeah. You know, it didn't happen. Jamal Murray and Michael Porter dropping 70 combined on us. We like that.
Turns out.
Yeah. And that's why I was saying it reminds me so much of the Warriors, because these teams just devise ridiculous coverages because they're afraid of like Steph and rhythm and the team.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
how that's like how it feels with like the strategy around Jokic is like, look, man, someone's gonna score, but I can't have him doing that thing where everyone's starting to make shots around him.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
They got well, I mean, even in game 2, but certainly in game 1, they got just so many open looks at the rim because of him.
yeah.
And just trying to make that go away. That's just the right thing to do.
Yeah. I want to get back to the voicemail because I thought it was a very it was an interesting question because we love to blast Kerr for being a bad development coach. And like, let's be honest, he's not he's not like Mr. like development front line, but like he brings us some good points. He brings up some really good points, which is, Looney, is that not development? Draymond Green, is that not development? Keep going down the line, like GP2, is that not development? And I think my overarching theme on Steve is he's the coach for players once they get over themselves. He's
Interesting.
not the coach for teenagers. He's not the guy to coddle a young guy and groom him. He's the coach to take the guy who's 24, been hit in the mouth, and then like, just trust me, I got you.
Andrew Wiggins is a perfect example.
Yeah.
Rookie year Andrew Wiggins landing with the Warriors did not become the Andrew Wiggins that he is right now. But Andrew Wiggins, with what was he, 6-7 years in the league?
Yeah.
When he got to Golden State?
He turned 25. It might have been on his birthday, but the point is they almost turning 25. Yeah.
Yeah. And he had been through what you're talking about. He'd gotten punched in the mouth. He'd tried to be the number one
put
guy
up numbers on a 20-62 team,
Yeah. And hey, here's this culture. Here's this team. This is your role. You're going to dominate at these 3 things. Now go do it. And he thrives at it. That's just a perfect example of what you're talking about, just tangibly right now on the team.
Yeah, and like the other way I look at it is like, I don't know if it's possible to do the raw 19-year-old development thing while also having guys like Steph Curry on your team. I think it's possible to do the 23-year-old who's ready to grind and do certain things on your team. And so that's kind of that's the thing. I do think Izzo brought up a great point, and I want to highlight it, which is like, not all development looks the same. Development isn't just taking an 18-year-old and like grooming him into becoming a star. Is GP2 not developed? How many coaches would have turned GP2 into a player? Clearly not many, because he bounced around the league over and over again, right?
Yeah, and you see that you see it with so many of the veterans that they sign. It's just Kerr finds a role for them. They understand basketball. They understand what they have to do to succeed. And that's why the raw 19-year-old thing, I think, doesn't work, because that player has been the best player on the court at every level they've played for so long. And now you come to this team where, hey, not only are you not going to be the best player, you might be the worst player, and you're obviously super talented, but do this one thing really well for 8 minutes a night at first. And that's a really difficult adjustment to make. Like, I don't put that on pick a young player. I don't want to pick somebody out, but I don't put that on a young player. I also don't put it on Steve Kerr. Like, that's just the reality of the NBA at the level that the Warriors are playing. It's hard.
It is hard. All right, let's keep moving. I like that one. Our guy Archie.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's Archie. It's been a while. Was able to listen to both parts of the pod. Thought it was a really great send off of Bob the God. We've been lucky as an organization to have him. I think when I think about stability, a lot of it should be accredited to how, he made decisions that he needed to make, as the GM and president, but also how he was able to manage egos with a lot of the things that kind of went on, throughout the entire run while he was there. Favorite moment is always going to be the moment that he had up in the Hamptons when he told, KD, hey, could win 1 or 2 without you. but with you, we can win, many titles. And the Stones, to say something like that to, if not the greatest scorer, one of the greatest scorers ever to play the game, there's not that many people that can do that. Him having that agent background, I think he was able to be something that most GMs cannot be. We have other fan bases, laughing that, Bob is gone. You don't get to see that very often. It kind of shows you the impact that Bob has had on the league and the NBA as a whole. Sucks to lose him. I'm excited for the future, but it was great to know that he's as much as a legend in an executive field as, Steph or Clay or Dre were on the court. Great job.
Wow.
Yeah. I appreciate the call, Archie. You're always welcome to call in. I haven't talked with you about it. It's been a week. How you feeling about?
Good.
It's weird, isn't
I'm glad.
it?
Well, I'm glad that this didn't go down. Who was the guy with the last name? Kraus?
Yeah,
That was a disaster by the end.
sure.
And
It's not,
I mean,
it's
he
not, it's
obviously
not Bob,
different
it's not
personalities.
Bob's style. Yeah,
Right. Different personalities. But if this is what Bob wanted to do, and he's going to ride off, and we get to talk about how awesome it was when Bob Myers was with the Warriors and all the great stuff he did. I think Archie made a great point that he's there with Steph and Clay and Draymond, and they are going to just be linked forever.
right.
Just in NBA history. That's just how it's going to be. The only way that doesn't happen is if he sticks around when he doesn't want to be, and now he's butting heads with Lacob, and that's trickling down to the players, and now the Warriors are a mess with Bob Myers at the front of it in the front office. Then I think that fractures a little bit. But now that doesn't get to happen. He clearly wanted to be done, and the Warriors tried to bring him back multiple times, and it sounds like Lacob's going to keep trying. And he gets to ride off into the sunset and do what he wants to do. I want nothing more from
25.
Bob.
He's got another 25 days under contract.
That's a good point. So once Bob Myers' contract is up in 25 days, he gets to ride off into the sunset. And I love that for him because there's nothing. How selfish would I be if I'm like, God damn it, Bob, should have come back. Like the Warriors are never going to have a stretch better than the one they just had. And he was one of the architects of it.
It's, I don't think it's fully hit me, if I'm gonna be honest with you. Like I conceptually understand, in 25 days, he's probably gonna go to Cabo for a month and a half and live his best life and do whatever he wants. And he's gonna move on, but it's weird. I haven't fully accepted the fact that on July 7th, when they start summer league or something like that, it's going to be someone new sitting up there, telling us about how their draft pick speaks 6 languages or something like,
right.
You know what I'm saying? Like it's, because it's such a, it's a cordial, like I'm just stepping down type of situation. And I think that's good. Like it doesn't need to be contentious, but like, it's just, it's weird, right?
He's the first one to go.
Yeah.
Andre Iguodala hasn't even retired yet.
No. And I hope he does, to be honest. I can't do another year of him saying he's ramping up, playing one game and then breaking something because he's 80.
It's really tough. It's really tough.
I mean,
I love him to death. I have his jersey, but man.
Also, like easily the best dressed street clothes in the NBA. So can't argue with that, but it's gonna be weird without him. I don't know.
It is. It's gonna be a little strange. I'm fascinated to see what happens the first time. Like the introductory presser for the new GM will be weird, and like you said, when they introduce a draft pick or a free agent signing or whatever, it's gonna.
It's really when it's really like when they hit turmoil. Like that's
the
kind of
first time Draymond flies off the handle during a game.
Yeah.
And Bob Myers can't walk down to the bench and talk him down. What does that look like?
Yeah. Is Mike Dunleavy there? I don't know. It is a thing that I don't know that I've properly conceptualized.
I don't think
'Cause
you'll be
there's-
able to. I don't think you'll be able to until stuff actually happens, and you can start downloading and digesting that stuff. Sans Bob.
That's true. That's true. I mean, that's kind of where we're at. All right. Last call tonight.
Yeah, so like my question is like what is like y'all's expectation for like the next season? Well, and like this offseason? Like what do you guys like want to actually see? So like I'm hearing like pool trade, but like what is like a realistic pool trade that's not us like losing value on like Jordan Poole?
Okay. I got the sense of the question there. So like, how are you feeling? Like, what do you want to see this offseason to feel positive about the Warriors next season? Let's just leave it right there. Let's simplify the question.
God, man, I genuinely have no outside of sign better veterans, I guess. Because I don't know. I again, this comes down to so much about personality versus on court production.
Mhm.
So I could see them, like, quote unquote, on paper getting worse by trading Jordan Poole.
Sure.
Because I think that caller
Multiple
was right.
40-point games last year. Like, he's very talented.
Yeah, and I don't. To that caller's point, I don't know where his standing is in the league. So I don't know if a trade for him is going to be a protected top 15 first round pick and some salary filler. And what does that look like? Does it make Golden State better? So that's what's so tough for me, is I don't know what they can do trade wise because of where Jonathan Kuminga and Jordan Poole are as assets, and Moses Moody too. I don't know where they are as assets in the trade market that I could be confident that the Warriors are getting a equal or better value in return. So it's really hard to envision how I'd feel great about them going into next year.
I kind of agree with you in the sense of people love to crown winners on paper because of like the asset haul they got in a trade. Oh, just how many picks they got, like that sort of thing. It's like,
right.
It's not nothing, but a 2027 pick doesn't do anything for me right now.
Yeah.
You know, like it's just something that like in 3 years, 4 years, I'll think about.
Yeah.
I guess the way I'd measure success is feeling like they're tangibly in going into this year.
Mm-hmm.
And they've made some moves that make sense from a winning in the present moment.
Yes,
but I just don't know that it can really be measured. Like I just don't see I don't see them trading for someone huge, you know?
No, I'm totally with you. But if they wind up adding some really good role players and they make a trade where, okay, they got quote unquote worse on paper, but you see where, okay, they have some better front court depth now, and you can kind of see the pieces of the roster coming together, then great. You know, we'll see how it looks in March. But honestly, step one is just Draymond coming back.
Yes.
If he doesn't, I have nothing for you.
I think that's the other part of it. If they extend Draymond and Clay, or we just know what the direction is there, that'll probably do more for my stability factor. Like they could trade Draymond. They could trade Draymond for a different type of player.
Is there a world where they trade Draymond and you feel better about the team?
Yeah, it's a very unlikely world, but like there's scenarios where they trade Draymond, Poole, and Kuminga, and like everything compiles to get you something better. Do I think that's reality? No, but I do think it's possible. Sure. I kind of feel like my personal perspective is everyone but 30's on the table, and then of course, my level of what they're worth to me changes depending on who it is. So
yeah, I think I'm right there with you. If it's Draymond and Kuminga and Poole to get like just Pascal Siakam, I'm out. That doesn't make me feel better.
Ooh, I might be into that, but
and I like Pascal Siakam a lot, but
yeah.
that's one of those moves that, okay, that on top of what else are they going to be able to do, and does
True.
that make them
Yeah,
better?
that's a good point. Like, what else are you doing on top of that? Are you just getting them and Anthony Lamb getting 40 minutes a game?
Ooh,
Like, yes, that's not. Yeah,
we know that's what you want.
Well, no comment. We're gonna do everything in my power to clear minutes for Patrick Baldwin Jr. And he's still, anyway.
If there was,
Whatever.
it feels like Patrick Baldwin Jr. is, of all the players who under like 22 or whatever, it feels like he's the one that could tangibly have a real role next year.
I mean, I would think it'd be Moses Moody, but yeah, I mean,
Oh yeah, I guess in my brain, Moses Moody's like 28. I forgot he's 20.
That's fair. That's fair. 21 now. Birthday this week.
Oh, shout out.
They threw it on the Warriors social feed. Sorry, I'm not a sicko enough to know his birthday by heart. But
some fan.
But I do agree with you on Baldwin. Like I see it. So
yeah.
Well,
I should have said the players who didn't have a role this year.
So,
having one next year. Yeah.
Anyways. So you think he has a better chance than Ryan Rollins? What a hot take.
Yeah, I'm there. I think I'm there right now.
Kyle, I appreciate you, bud.
Yeah. Anytime, man. Happy to do it. John Fisher, sell the A's.